You've been told that the serve is just a reactive shot, but what if I told you that it can be used to give you an advantage? I've played against some of the biggest servers in the game, and especially at the singles level, where a huge serve is a must for most players. If you don't return well, you're done. That experience has taught me how to master the return in a way that most players overlook. As serves are continuing to get bigger and bigger, the need to defend them with confidence is more important than ever. In this video, I'll break down the 3 core principles that have allowed me to get an advantage with my return. I'll show you how you can use them to neutralize big servers, get to the kitchen line under control, and never feel rushed by a third shot drive again. I've got a gift for you. I made a private video revealing the key technique that I discovered for the backhand roll. It's a small change, but it made the biggest difference in my game. If you want it, just click the link in the top comment and I'll send it to you for your support. Let's start with the foundation. With serves getting faster and heavier, your setup has to evolve and be more efficient. Most players unknowingly crowd the baseline, thinking it's gonna help them get to the net faster, but in reality, it's hurting their return. The first part to hitting a good return is positioning. If I know that I'm facing a big server, I need to make sure that I'm setting up properly before that serve is even hit. I see so many players stand right here on the baseline and they're crowding this return. So if that server hits a good deep return, then we're screwed because we can't meet that ball in front of us and glide to that kitchen line like we usually do. So how do we fix this? We have to give ourselves more room by playing back here. This is gonna allow us to be prepared for these deep serves because that ball is going to land here. It's gonna be hit with spin, so it's gonna kick up, and we're actually gonna be able to meet it higher. So we're gonna be able to give ourselves more margin over the net because we're not crowding that baseline. Also, we're not gonna have to ever back up when this serve is hit and then have to make up ground by moving forward. We're gonna be able to lean forward here and meet that ball in front of us and then glide up to that kitchen line. So that's the first thing I want you to think about when positioning is not overcrowding this baseline. The second thing I want you to think about is not running through your return, and instead think leaning into your return. So a lot of people think that they're trying to use this forward momentum and they're running to get up to that kitchen line, and what happens is they end up catching the return back here and it throws off their timing. What I want you to do instead, after giving yourself enough room, is just have a little forward lean here and just meet the ball with a little bit of forward momentum rather than trying to run through this shot. And so what this is gonna do is allow you a little extra power because you have that forward momentum, so you're gonna counteract their power, but you're not gonna mess up your timing. Once you hit that shot, then we focus on getting up to that kitchen line. So remember, it's a lean rather than a movement forward. So now that we have enough room in front of us and we have a little bit of a lean forward, I want you to pair this with movement towards the ball. So how do we move effectively towards the ball? The first thing is going to be a little split step right when our opponent hits that serve. The reason we do this is because when we land on that split step, well, now we know if we're gonna go left or right. And we do this by using our outside leg. So the first movement is going to be with our outside leg. If they hit a big deep serve and you don't have time to close your stance here, meaning you're going to your outside leg and then moving forward to hit like this, well then it's totally fine. We can hit off our outside foot. But the main thing is that we're moving efficiently towards the ball. So we're using a split step, we're using our outside leg to get towards that ball, and then we're moving from there, right? So that first step is very, very efficient because when they're hitting big serves, we don't have a lot of time to react. So make sure that you're not split stepping and doing all this pitter patter here. We wanna make sure that we're being really efficient with our footwork. Okay, so that's positioning. Now let's talk about technique. The most common mistake I see on the return is overcomplicating the swing. When someone's serve has a lot of pace or spin, our instinct is to try and do more, and we end up doing too much. We need to make sure we have a simple, reliable swing that we can replicate consistently. The first thing I want you to do when you see that come to your right or to your left is do a unit turn. And so we have our split step, we're in good position. The first thing you do is you turn your upper body, your torso, okay? So we're not immediately going with the arm because that's how we end up over swinging. We're just turning with our upper body here in our unit turn, okay? Now, a big mistake that people make on this return is they end up going up like this, right? They're trying to generate topspin, so they end up coming up and doing this big loopy swing, which is fine on forehands and other shots, but for the return, we're really trying to rebound this shot, and we're not trying to generate a lot of topspin because it's really hard to do that when someone's hitting a big heavy serve. So instead, we're trying to be pretty linear here with our takeback. So we're just doing a linear unit turn here. We're not trying to get that much loop on this ball. When you do go back to this position, make sure you're not over swinging like this because our unit turn is doing that turn for us. So if we allow the arm to go back, it gets unproductive and it's gonna throw off our timing. This isn't gonna generate more power. The power is gonna come from our legs and that forward lean we talked about. Another thing to make sure of, once we have this swing here, we're turned and we're moving forward into the shot, keep your head leveled. I don't wanna see your body popping up because that's when we lose control of the ball. The second your head moves when you hit the shot, that's when you're gonna lose control and it's gonna start spraying. You're gonna miss returns long, you're gonna miss them wide, and you're no longer engaged with that ball. So make sure you're being really simple up here with your swing, you're staying leveled with your head, and that your legs are doing the engaging for you. That's gonna be our power driver, right? That lean forward. And this is all very, very simple and linear, okay? We're not trying to generate a lot of topspin because they're already giving us a really hard ball and they're gonna hit sometimes the spinnier serves. And when we try to reverse that spin or redirect that spin, it can be very difficult. Instead, we wanna keep it a little bit flatter on the return, giving us an easier time redirecting that ball. So make sure that we have a nice unit turn, we're not taking the paddle too far back, and that when we do lean forward, we're keeping our head pretty leveled here. So we're keeping our body and our legs engaged and we're not popping up or losing control of that ball. Once you're positioned and have the right technique, strategy becomes the separator. This is the part where we can use our return to get an advantage and set up the point in our favor. The smartest returns are targeted and not just reactive. Before their serve is even hit, we should know where we're hitting our return, how we're gonna hit our return, and why we're hitting that specific return in the first place. The first thing you should think about when focusing on where you're gonna hit your return is which player has the weaker third shot. For instance, let's say one of your opponents has a really good third shot drive, while the other one has a less dangerous third and just drops that ball. Well, this should give us a good indication that we're gonna hit the return to the player that doesn't have the dangerous drive. This is gonna allow us to get to the kitchen at a higher rate while taking away one of their weapons. Another example that I don't see a lot of people think about is what if one player closes the net really well? This can be a good indication to return to them, forcing them to stay back longer so they can't crash the net as easy. One more thing to look at is your team strengths. If you guys don't like countering drives, then try to keep the return away from the player who drives it well. And vice versa. If you like countering drives, try to return to the player who's leaving those drives a little high and look to play aggressively off them. Small wins like this over the course of a game make a huge difference. Now let's say we're in a position where both of our opponents have a really good third shot and a really good serve. Well, in this case, we want to make sure that we're focusing on getting to the line effectively and safely. We're going to do this by giving ourselves a lot of margin and a lot of time. If you can return cross court, then that ball is going to be traveling in the air the longest, giving us the most amount of time to get to that kitchen. Also, if we can aim cross court, then that ball is going to be crossing the lowest part of the net, giving us the margin we need. When you're hitting your return, there's one big differentiator that separates the good ones from the bad ones, and that's depth. If we can get a return deep, it's going to make life a lot easier when trying to defend a third shot drive or a consistent drop. For instance, a high short ball is going to be really easy for our opponent to drive. A short low ball is going to be really easy for our opponent to drop. But no matter how high you hit it, if you can get this ball deep, it's going to be really difficult for your opponents to take away time from you and produce their best shots. So my personal favorite return to hit is going to be a fast, low return cross court. The reason I love this return is because I still get to swing out, making sure that my return is crossing the lowest part of the net and giving me tons of distance because I'm going cross court. That's going to give me the margin I need to keep that ball in while still being able to go for it. Whichever return you're hitting, you have to remember that depth is key. A strong return sets the tone for the entire point, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. If you want the full formula for getting to 5-0 and playing the kind of pickleball you know you're capable of, click the video on the screen now.